We get the Agatha trailer today, but not all news is good news. But we're going to talk about that and more on today's episode of the Geek Watch podcast.
This is the Geek Watch podcast with Brian Hatcher and Mandy Petrie.
Greetings, Geek Watchers, and welcome to episode 220 of the Geek Watch podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, and with me, as always, Geek Watch's own resident geek goddess, Mandy Petrie.
Hello, Brian.
And we got us a special gift, the new trailer for Agatha.
Agatha All Along,
which
yes.
we're definitely going to talk about that. Before we do have a bit of an in memoriam.
Yeah.
We just got news that Shirley Duvall passed away.
Yes, very sad.
Which is really sad. Also, if you remember Alf, the actor.
That's right, yeah.
The actor who played
I never watched it, but I saw that.
Yeah, he passed away with his support animal.
Oh.
I don't remember if I mentioned it because this was a few weeks ago, and I know that we were in our German leave of absence. Did I mention Seven, the dog, passing away? Did I mention this to you? Which you're looking a little bit confused.
Yeah.
This was a few weeks ago. Seven was known mostly for playing dog on The Walking Dead.
Oh.
So, yes, the actor who played dog did, in fact, pass away. That was a few weeks ago, and like I said, I think that was during our German vacation. But I thought I'd mention that as well because, of course, what a wonderful part of that show, for sure. Let's talk about Agatha All Along.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see a trailer. I figured we were going to see one eventually. I know you saw it, and of course, when it came out, it actually came out yesterday. And as soon as it did, I was like, "Oh, have you seen it? Have you seen it?" And you're like, "Oh, not yet." Now that I know you've seen it, what did you think?
Of course, I'm excited about it, but looking at it, you would not know that this was a Marvel property, which I think is really neat, like Werewolf by Night. But then again, WandaVision, really, they stepped out of their box, their comfort zone, to have something different. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. All the characters, I don't know if they are from the comic or if they just put them for this show, but they all look really neat and no one's wasted. It's going to have a great dynamic and a great mixture of people and abilities and storylines. And
like you say, we're getting a lot of heavy hitters in here. The young fellow that you see in the trailer, from what I understand, that character is Wiccan.
Okay.
And
Tommy grown up, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
But how does that work in this world? Exactly. So
Did he get stuck in the loop that she left Agatha in? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Ooh,
There's obviously there are a lot of questions. I thought it was interesting. I know some people were a little confused at the beginning. They're like, she's in a detective TV show.
Yes.
She's still stuck in there. So,
and maybe we'll get all those great tropes through all kinds of different TV shows, and I'm here for it. Yeah, we'll see her in a sitcom and
having Patti LuPone, which is
she's always a powerhouse.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Took the words right out of my mouth. And Aubrey Plaza is going to be amazing.
I'd forgotten about Aubrey Plaza in it. Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect.
I don't know if you saw any of Fox's Legion, but her character in Legion is incredible. She was able to basically everything that you think of as far as Aubrey Plaza, being able to turn it up to 11 and make her basically a psychic god. Yeah, was incredible. Yeah, allowing her to just riff is always going to be wonderful. And I just love that during that possession scene at the end where it's like, oh, where's she going? Where's she going?
Yeah. And thinking about it with Patti LuPone, I hope we get a musical episode.
There are a lot of good voices on there for sure.
Yeah.
We know it's going to be good. I'm hoping that this could be part of the Marvel Renaissance that's very possibly going to be starting in the next couple of weeks when we get Deadpool and Wolverine, which once again, not only is it an IMAX, but it's also an IMAX 3D. So if you like things big and in your face, and I'm obviously getting into the spirit of Deadpool to say that. Now, all the reviews I'm seeing on this have been extremely positive, including a test screening that they had in China. Did you hear about this?
I did not know.
The Chinese are not very well known for putting up with a lot of Western comedy shenanigans. But apparently the Chinese audience reactions to this was laughter and applause that did not stop from the beginning of.
Oh, wow.
They laughed and applauded.
They participated.
All the way through. They said the laughter never stopped, just continued on and on. They just laughed all the way through it. So this apparently is being projected to be the biggest R movie opening of all time.
Really?
That they're
Wow.
expecting us to break a whole bunch of records,
Mm-hmm.
which I would like to see a movie do that for a change, at least on that end of the records. Everybody is talking just really positively about Deadpool Wolverine, and I knew people were going to be excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that, and we've talked about this before, if Ryan Reynolds could be left alone to make the type of movie that he makes, if he could manage to pull that off without a whole lot of interference from the studios, no problem. It'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently, this could be the best of the Deadpool
Blow away
movies.
all expectations.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be.
Yeah. When does that happen? The third movie in a trilogy is the best.
Yeah.
That never happens.
Usually you're starting to jump the shark, but when it comes to Deadpool, it's jump the shark proof.
There's always someplace to go.
Yeah, you wanted to jump the shark. And again, being able to bring in Wolverine and then all the supposed cameos, which again, I've not watched anything. I'm sure there's been some big cameo already that's already been revealed somewhere. And I'm sure there are people listening to me right now going, yeah, what about? No, I haven't seen anything. I'm hoping that I can survive these next couple of weeks somehow without seeing anything. But yeah, everybody's really excited about it. And again, with Agatha All Along, we're going to get a double episode, 2 episodes in September. And
Good,
then it's
just in time for spooky season.
Yeah, apparently so. September rolls around and I'm sure it'll dip right into October and we'll be ready. Of course, when we got Werewolf by Night for spooky season before, which was amazing. But again, I'm really hoping that this is a renaissance for Marvel.
Just a bit of a lull with the last couple of shows.
Yeah, I feel like it had lost its way a little bit. It had become very old hat. It had become very predictable. And for me, Marvel has always been the best when they've stretched themselves and gone to places that you wouldn't necessarily expect. Like Deadpool, Wolverine, like Agatha All Along, well, WandaVision. I think WandaVision was one of the best of
Very original.
of Marvel television, which is why I was extremely disappointed to hear that when Multiverse of Madness came out, that the director of the film had never watched any of WandaVision.
And it shows.
Yeah, it does. And I do still feel, I mean, to this day, I feel like Wanda got the short shrift. Marvel has been, to some degree, disappointing. It's been hit or miss. I hope that this will be the beginning of a new renaissance for Marvel. We're getting some stuff already from the DC side of things. It's kind of a mixed bag, we'll say, but mostly I think in that situation, it's people who are judging stuff and not really having all the facts because, of course, we don't at this point. I'm willing right now to just hold off, and I'm not trying to make any kind of predictions about how good the new Superman movie is going to be or the Supergirl movie, although rumor has it that we're going to have Lobo in Supergirl, played by Jason Momoa, finally.
Okay.
Finally, the stunt casting I've been waiting to see. There's good things over the horizon. I'm definitely looking forward to that.
The art that I've seen from Cape Crusader,
Yeah.
that new animated one, that's
Oh,
looking... But Batman, it's hardly ever missed when it comes to animated. There have been very few poorly animated Batman properties.
Well, I can name one, but I'm not going to.
The Batman?
No.
Oh, no?
No.
Okay, then I don't know.
I would say that the Harley Quinn one shot that they did.
I haven't seen it. So.
Yeah, don't bother.
Okay.
And not because of any of the actors. I just feel like the script wasn't there. And although Harley Quinn, the TV show, I think is brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, that one shot wished it was Harley Quinn, the TV show.
It
But-
should have been an unaired pilot.
Maybe. But let's go from complaining about DC to complaining about Doctor Who.
Uh-oh.
No. We had talked about Doctor Who last week.
Yes.
And I'm going to go back just a little bit because there was something that I didn't talk about last week because I felt like I was piling on and I didn't want to pile on. But things have happened.
Exhaustively,
yes, unfortunately. Some of it wound up on the cutting room floor, thank goodness, because afterwards I'm like, okay, enough's enough. I made the point. But there was one thing that happened in the season finale that really bugged the hell out of me, that I hated and didn't talk about it last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like with things that are happening now, I need to talk about it.
Okay.
Which is specifically something that blink and you missed it toward the end, when everyone came back from the dust. And when our friends at UNIT are coming back from the dust, you remember Colonel Ibrahim?
The one who went into the room with them?
He didn't go into the room with them, but he
Okay.
was the badass UNIT soldier who, when everything shattered, he didn't even duck. The tough guy. He was also the one who made the joke when Susan Triad was like, I could make the tea. And he was like, you made this tea? And she's like, yeah. Don't make the tea. Don't make the tea. But yeah, he was basically the John Wick of UNIT. And like I said, he was a minor character. But there was a moment where Kate is on the floor when she's come back from the dust, and he reaches down and he picks her up. And you notice that she's looking at him a certain way. And I'm like, am I reading a little bit too much into this? But then they walk out onto the helipad, and Kate put her hand out, and he takes her hand as they look out into the city. And I'm like, okay, so I'm not making this up. There's obviously something going on here, relationship-wise. And I saw an article today where they were like, this is really good character development. You're giving Kate a relationship, and that's helping to really develop that character, and this is really a good thing. No, it's not. No, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, no, I didn't even notice it.
Yeah. Some people didn't notice it. I noticed it. And no, this isn't a good thing. She's his boss.
Yeah, that's not.
This is bad. This is like really bad. And I understand some people got upset about this because it wrecked their headcanon a little bit because they thought maybe there's a possibility that Kate might be a lesbian and might be in a lesbian relationship. And they had that in their headcanon. And I understand this kind of screws this up. And I have to admit that I'm a little bit upset because this screws up a little bit of my headcanon as well. Because in my headcanon, she's not dumb enough to date somebody that works for her. Besides the fact it's a power imbalance, it's an HR nightmare.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't even feel like I have to go through every single thing that this would wreck. Just in the fact that she should be smart enough to know this is wrong. And if she were a male dating a younger female employee,
Would have noticed it.
people would have noticed it. It's bad. It's horrible. It's terrible. And the fact that more people aren't upset about this bothers me, especially in the world that we live in.
The fact that I didn't notice it, maybe I was just thinking these are like, thank goodness we're alive.
Yeah.
Look, that's maybe what I took from it. Because I don't remember it. It didn't stand out to me at all. Yeah.
Well, I think in my situation, because I'm in management and I do management training.
Yeah, so you've seen all the videos. And
it's like the expression, when all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. I tend to notice relationships between management and people subordinates because that's part of my job. I do it pretty much every day. And so
I was in some of those training videos.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, this is bad. And again, not to harp over all the stuff that I talked about last week, but especially if this has no consequence to it. If they're going down this road and this becomes a problem later on, where it's like all the problems that this is going to become later on, obviously, if there's no consequence to it whatsoever.
And we're positive that UNIT isn't getting its own spinoff.
Well, there's been talk about a spinoff.
Okay, because that would be interesting. We're already going into it with this thing hanging over our heads that is going to end up with a problem. And UNIT's got so many great characters now. They took time to develop them and give them backstories and the ties to old Doctor Who and stuff like that. That could, if we're looking in the long run and Russell and Steven are what can we do and can we give it? Because Torchwood had dangerous relationships that absolutely toxic relationships, all of them.
I think ultimately, and it's funny you talk about that because I do want to cover something along those lines, but the truth is, if you're developing this into story, okay, that's obviously different than, let's just pretend like, this was something that happened and it's not going to have any kind of consequence. We're not going to worry about it. Knowing how horrible this is and a terrible thing to have happened, and we're just not going to acknowledge that it happened, or we're going to pretend like it's not that big of a deal, which I think is 100 times worse. Because this is bad. It should be considered bad. But even if it is going to be a storyline, I hate the fact that they had to dumb Kate down so much to
get a backdoor pilot.
to get her in that situation, because nothing of that character made me believe that she wasn't a very capable leader who wouldn't understand that this is not good. No, we can't. No, you just can't. You can't. But then again, this month's issue of SFX magazine has an interview with Russell T. Davies about Doctor Who, and he talks about certain things in the show, like we talked about the Shulka Doctor. Is that going to develop into anything? And he said, no, it's just a fun little Easter egg. We're not going to really go into it, which you're wondering, okay, why? But also he talked about 73 yards, and he said, to me, it seems obvious what's going on, but I like the fact that people are debating it. I like that there's no answers for everyone. To which I would say briefly, because again, I don't want to rehash everything we talked about last week. Because again, it's last week. You can listen to it if you haven't listened to it already. But the truth is, if you've made the rules of the story that you're doing a mystery, then you have to answer the mystery. And that's the danger. Again, we've talked about mystery boxes. This is the danger I've always seen in mystery boxes.
Chekhov's rifle.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the mystery box, you don't ever get an answer to a mystery. You don't even get clues. We've talked about that. And if you think it's a mystery, then you're going to be disappointed. And I think as much as I enjoyed 73 yards, I get why some people don't. And the thing is, I feel Russell T. Davies, the fact that he's trolling the audience, I don't know if that's a good idea, because you can't get upset about the audience taking things too seriously if those are the rules you've set for the game, okay? And again, I don't want to rehash all of this. But I feel, like I said, last week I didn't really want to go into the whole relationship thing because it's like we had gone so long already. But really what made it painful is, of course, the news this week of bad author acts badly, which I really didn't know if I wanted to talk about this or not. Because, like, on the one hand, if I don't talk about it, people are going to be like, why didn't you talk about it? On the other hand, this really hits home for me, because if there was anybody that I wanted to be when I grew up, it was Neil Gaiman.
Oh, no.
And the fact that Neil Gaiman, who has always been about believe all women, and now we have 2 accusations over the course of apparently what I haven't listened to. There was like 4 podcasts.
I haven't heard anything about this.
Yeah.
That's
are you just hearing about this now? Oh, good Lord. I'm sorry. This is not that.
I had no idea.
Yeah. There's a podcast. I don't remember the name of the podcast right now. It's out there. It's not going to be hard to find. But over the course of 4 podcasts, they interviewed these 2 women. One of them was a fan. The other one was a nanny to his kids. Ugh. They were definitely younger. And Neil's saying that nothing happened. Everything was consensual.
But something did happen, is what he's saying.
Yeah, he's saying that he did have relationships with both of them. That's the thing. It's if it's your nanny and you're giving her a check,
you can't.
That can't happen. It absolutely can't happen. And the other thing too, not that I'm telling you anything you don't know, but in case somebody happens to be listening to this podcast and they're not aware, consent isn't a general thing that you have that's always in play at all times. It is something you have to get every single time. And I admit, in my stupid 20s, I didn't necessarily know that. I was very fortunate in the fact that in my early 20s, I was in a relationship with someone. We'd had sex several times. And there was one day that I got really handsy with her. And I was very fortunate in the fact that she called me out on my bullshit. And I apologized, and I meant it when I said it. And I also learned, holy crap, that ain't cool. I don't care if you've been married 30 years. Yes, every single time you get consent.
Yep.
And if they say no, no is a sentence. You don't need an explanation. No one owes you an explanation for any no that they ever give you. A solid, meaningful no means stop. And if you don't stop, that's a problem.
Yeah, they bring that. It's really neat that they bring that up on Ghosts. I don't know if you watch Ghosts, but
I haven't seen
it started out on BBC, came over to America, and now it's got several iterations all around the world. It's such a good show. There was a maid in like the 1800s, and the lady of the house, she hates her because she was a whore, and the maid is trying to explain to her, I'm not a woman in power. I could not say no to my employer.
Right.
And when someone holds something over you, you cannot have an equal relationship with a subordinate. You can't. And whether it be in the workplace, whether it be in the army, which is a big one, you cannot have a relationship of equality. You just can't do it.
No. When there's a power dynamic involved, even if they say yes, a yes isn't a yes if they can't say no, or if they're scared to say no. That's just the way that it is. Let me back up and say all of this obviously is alleged because I certainly wasn't there. I haven't listened to the podcast, although my understanding of the podcast is everybody got a fair shake, and even Neil was allowed to weigh in on it. And of course, he's saying everything was consensual. There was never a time.
I can give that at one time ignorance didn't when men didn't understand that. There's a Kevin Spacey interview with Piers Morgan, and Piers Morgan said it used to be that a lot of marriages started out because a woman worked for a man. She was his secretary. She was his nurse in the dentist office or something.
Right.
And that's not the way it is anymore. You can't have that anymore. But we had to learn as a society that we can't do that.
Yeah. And my understanding, like I said, and I haven't listened to these podcasts. They're definitely out there. I feel like, to be fair, I need to, although I'm not looking forward to it. What made this very difficult for me is not only, like I said, I wanted to be Neil Gaiman when I grew up. It's extremely difficult to deal with a situation where here's somebody who obviously knows better. Again, I have to say allegedly. And obviously, if Neil Gaiman is innocent, going back to this thing, it's like the thing with the nanny never should have happened, regardless of how consensual it was. If it was consensual 100% of the time, it should have never happened, obviously. Just because, again, the power dynamic, that was wrong. Again, it's really painful to deal with a situation where, especially someone that I admired, who was an inspiration for my art, someone who I've actually met face to face, this is a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
And it just goes back to there can't be any kind of healing. There can't be any kind of do better if you don't think you did anything wrong. And maybe he didn't do anything wrong. I'll say, okay, if that's the case, then I hope that his name is cleared and he can put all this stuff behind him. But if he did that stuff, and not to say he needs to be canceled, but he can't go on the rest of his life pretending like it didn't happen. If he did it, he needs to do something about it.
Go to therapy, take classes.
He needs to figure something out, especially with, like I say, the fact that obviously his persona online is not the person who would do something like this. And again, to give him the benefit of the doubt, I don't believe that he said those things insincerely, that this was just a ploy because he knew it was a way to sell books and he was putting on a persona that he didn't believe in. I don't believe that's the case. I think sometimes in a situation, maybe when you want something to happen a certain way, you ignore stuff that you shouldn't be ignoring, and something that from the outside looks really obvious may not seem that obvious to you just because you don't want to see it that way. But whatever happens, I hope that whoever is the victim in all of this, that they are able to get some sort of peace, some sort of closure out of this. And people that need a talking to, I hope they get that talking to. It's going to be really painful for a lot of us who are now having to decide, how do we look at the art that we have loved for a long time? We have to make those decisions for ourselves, and things that'll be happening farther along the road as this develops will shape that in a lot of ways. But even as dark as all of that is, there's a lot of positive coming along in the geek world, in television and in movies, and things that are